Let's kick it off now. So yeah, I think we're gonna run this like we do our regular AMAs, where we have the three portions. The first will be the formal AMA between us. Then we'll open it up to the project, which would be you, in case you had anything else you wanted to address towards the audience. And then finally, we'll let the audience ask some questions at the very end. The purpose of this AMA is a bit different from the usual ones. I think what this will be to initiate a feature of the LFG process going forward for all launch candidates, just to check in with the community one last time after the vote, but prior to the launch. Because I don't know if you remember our original AMA, but that was almost 2 months ago now, so a lot has certainly happened between then and now. Kimo, do you want to introduce them properly?
Yes, sir. Sharky is the first escrowless NFT lending protocol in the world with almost 500,000 SOL and interest payments distributed to lenders. Moving forward, it aims to democratize capital access and build meaningful peer-to-peer economies at scale. Do you guys want to give brief introductions to yourselves as well as what we add on to that?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Anton. I am co-founder of Sharky. I'm going by a nickname Restuta on Twitter and everywhere, but you can call me Anton. Yeah, so I've been building startups for most of my career. I'm a software engineer by profession. Right now I'm founder, but my passion is building software and building products. Yeah, I'll pass the torch to Poised.
Hey everyone, I am Poised, head of partnerships and head of the ambassador program here at Sharky. And I am a SharkyFi power user and very passionate user of SharkyFi turned into team member. Really excited to be here with the amazing Jupiter community. So thanks everyone for showing up.
Absolutely, and of course, it's Nepa here, community lead at Sharky for 2 years now, which is insane. I've been working in the space since late 2021. I am usually the voice you might hear behind the Sharky account when we host spaces, and sometimes when we attend spaces when it's not Anton. But super excited to be here, and thanks for having us, you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. Slorg, do you want to start with the questions, or do you start with the questions that anyone?
Yeah, no, I can start with a few questions. I think one of the logical things to ask, because it's been almost 2 months since our last AMA, is what is advanced about your project in those 2 months? What has changed about your project?
In the last 2 months, was that the question?
Yes.
2 months is a good question. I think last 2 months we were like razor focused on farming. So like our core project, we launched 3-day loans for certain collections. So that's what changed kind of like as an experiment. Like community has been requesting it. So it's a shorter term loans. We launched it on Solana monkeys and on sharks, which are both before 16 days and 14-day loans. So we're given like now much shorter option for kind of like people and quick flips. It also leads to cheaper loans if you don't need loan for longer duration. Then the majority of time we've been focused actually on token launch, kind of like building for the future, building our airdrop platform, which is like farming platform, token stake and all of that, like entangled incentives. And we've been developing for the future. We've been developing for our expansion for ordinals. So yeah, I think that's 2 stages of that.
Gotcha. So you guys are now in this post-vote process, so you've ascended beyond the candidacy stage, and now you're set to launch. How has the post-vote process been for you? Has it been more involved than the pre-vote process?
Process in what sense? Process in terms of like Twitter community, or involved in which sense? Like is still more busy, definitely.
Yeah, I guess I would say in just terms of activity, like I assume that the types of activities you're doing, there's some overlap probably, but also some differences.
Yeah, I think pre-launch we were mostly like kind of like compiling information about the platform, like all the history and all the achievements, because we've been in the space for quite a long time. It's not like we're not a new launch that is coming to market, so it's challenging to communicate all the achievements. There are so many, and we're fortunate to have them. It's like the belt of achievements. Right now, we're much more into communicating narrative for the future, not what we've done in the past, because that's what drives us forward. That ultimately we're communicating like why we're here, and before we were communicating like why we were here before, what we have done. And on top of all the buildings from just like social perspective, and yeah, that keeps us busy because that narrative on one hand is simple, on the other hand is it's not, because we're trying to change the world in a good way. We're trying to basically make liquidity accessible for retail, for not just on Web3. Make it accessible for people who cannot access funds right now, who cannot borrow funds. And that's a very long journey. And to some people, it might seem that we're going in a very convoluted way towards the journey by doing like, NFT degen lending in a sense. I don't see it as such, but right now we've been busy communicating this narrative, like how exactly this ties to our vision of bringing, like allowing people right now to borrow funds in countries or parts of the world that cannot do that or are abused by banks. So yeah, so that's what we've been focused on.
I'm curious sort of on like, if you could try and put it into is the grand vision.
What is what? Sorry, it was hard to hear.
The grand, yours or Sharky's
Yeah.
as a whole, or both. Yeah.
Grand vision is anybody on the planet, as long as they own something, which could include their social capital, which could include their credit score, which is a form of social capital, or physical assets, watch, NFTs, in-game assets, anything, they will be instantly borrow capital using that as collateral. Just like you do in Sharky. Right now, I think it's fair to say anybody who holds NFT can go to Sharky and when Solana is not underperforming and can borrow within like 15 seconds and sometimes very substantial amount of funds. Like, if you hold in MadLat, you can probably borrow like north of like $15,000. I don't think that's accessible for the world. Like even in United States right now, I cannot borrow $15,000 or my, I don't know, friends who are like way wealthier than me also cannot do this. They still go through this convoluted process, verification, underwriting, all of that. Now, if you talk to less privileged parts of the world, people borrow already peer-to-peer. They go to each other and say like, hey, can you take this watch? Can you like give me money? They go to pawn shops. In best case, worst case, they go to like some dealers that like, smuggle their watch and like give them a paper note and say like, sure, I'll return it to you maybe if you repay it tomorrow. And those are like real loan sharks. If you don't repay, they, come to your home, torture your family in a sense. So we don't want that. We want those people to be able to borrow funds in a much safer, faster way. So that's the current vision. And on another hand, we want people to be able to lend to those people safely. Not just like, hey, let me lend to this person from this unknown country and them to run away and take my money. Okay? It's a very challenging problem to solve for the world because the world is underperforming in that sense. Infrastructure is not ready. Social capital is not ready. But again, changing the world can start from changing 1% of it and then scaling it up.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's really interesting. So you already have mentioned real world assets, and I think in our last AMA you detailed that you wouldn't necessarily be the custodian. Could you speak on sort of the plans there and how you actually become a liquidity layer for real world assets? RWA is for those people who don't know the acronym versus the thing. RWA is the hype word.
Yeah. The mentality there is very simple, but it depends if you're exposed to those companies. For example, if you go to IKEA, if you go to PayPal, if you go to eBay, on eBay you would use PayPal. Often they would offer you like, hey, do you want to buy this like thing that somebody is selling, which is essentially peer-to-peer marketplace, right? You can use PayPal to finance it. You can like, hey, you can buy this used TV, but you can like pay in installments. And I know eBay wants PayPal, so now it's different. It's not a Web3 way, but it's Web2 way. So they just acquired this, and now you're kind of dealing with the same company. But it's separate entity, right? On IKEA, it's the same. In the United States, it's like a firm, Afterpay, or some third-party provider. So if you go to Nike website, there's another third party that can help you buy shoes and finance them. And I'm talking about kind of like mortgages or financing here. So it's very similar to loans. It doesn't matter fundamentally. It's basically like you borrowing funds against collateral, or you borrowing funds against future collateral. You can think about it like that, because if you don't repay the entire thing, they can take it away from you or active credit score and stuff like that. So Sharky wants to be that. Sharky wants to be this like PayPal of Web3, a firm of Web3. If in the future there will be eBay on chain, if in the future there will be Nike on chain, if in the future there will be, you trade watches, you trade cards, you trade in-game assets on chain, we want to be PayPal of that world that allows consumers to take mortgage, to buy it in installments. And reversely, if it's a micropace when people trade and sell items, then you will be able to even borrow funds against those items that have public price. So that's the vision there, and so we're
Yeah.
specifically targeting consumer real-world assets.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting because, right, if you have the sort of the monetary layer that is Bitcoin or perhaps another L1 that is sort of the financial security in the mission of like, oh, we need to replace, banks or, bank the unbanked, so to speak. You're sort of missing that a large function of banks, probably the main for banks, which is loans. So would you say that that's kind of the slot they fit into in a more decentralized world?
Restuta, may I take that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so and to kind of answer your question in kind of a little bit of an end around kind of way, like right now, Shark is an infrastructural part of the Solana NFT landscape, right? With allowing users to get like on-demand permissionless liquidity against their NFTs, right? Very quickly. And it's currently this incredible way to have this gamified buying experience, right? And as we know, it's the lending and borrowing of crypto using an NFT as collateral. And so I think in that regard, Sharky.fi being this kind of financial layer, imagine when assets are starting to be tokenized, right? And Sharky already has this incredible smart contract, very much like Restuta described, that allows for that permissionless and really beautiful lending and borrowing experience. And now imagine if you apply that to further RWAs, right? Real world assets. You apply that to, say your favorite baseball card or a classic car or whatever that asset might be. I think that Sharky has an incredible opportunity to do that, being that we're already this smart contract driven layer. And so in the further tokenization of assets, I think, of course, we have an amazing opportunity to capture that and be that infrastructural layer in kind of the RWA stack, right? We can be that lending and borrowing portion of the RWA kind of, and I know I'm saying that a lot, but kind of be part of that stack, if you will, that RWA-fi kind of protocol, if you will. So I think we have an incredible opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I have a fun question. So I think for those of you who don't know, there's this protocol called Underdog Protocol, and they've been working on tokenizing cows. So I guess my question to you is, so for them, it's like, it's easier to track, yada, 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 yada. But I have a tokenized cow. In theory, can I get a loan for my cow on Sharky?
Why not? We only need two things: ability to price this asset, either by ourselves or from a third party, like somebody who tells us like, hey, this cow is worth that much. And for somebody to guarantee that there is an enforcement of collateral retrieval. So like if you borrow against your cow and you don't repay your loan, then that cow either goes to lender, delivered on the truck, or it gets liquidated.
Please don't liquidate my cow.
And yeah,
I already named her Bertha. Like, her name's Bertha. I don't want my cow to be liquidated. The farm has fallen on hard times. She's my only cow. Okay, that's enough cattle talk.
Yeah, but actually, yes. Like if they're tokenizing cows, like yes, well, I don't see why not. Like as long as they are tokenizing and they're taking care of this logistics, we bring lenders, we bring liquidity, we bring expertise on product, which is most important. Most people underestimate this. They're just like, oh, like plug in this API and this thing. Like, no, we bring real lenders. We bring people who like deposit millions of dollars and you're ready to borrow. And we also know how to build product for consumers to use. So we build it for you, kind of like so if you run on this tokenization platform.
Yeah, so to maybe walk the audience through it a little bit more, I think the cow actually kind of used. So I do get a loan for my cow, and there's a custodian in there, right? So there's somebody only using Sharky as a liquidity, maybe get some interest off of these cows without actually selling them. I've lived forever cows, but there has to be somebody in that process who kind of custodies those things. Like, are you working, probably not with any cattle provider? Are there any other projects that you're like looking at working with who are already on tokenizing real world assets?
Yeah, we definitely have quite a bit of partners lined up that we basically decided like which one we want to double down, because our double down strategy will mean almost acting like a co-founder for them, like almost basically like helping them get off the ground, helping them get traction, build product that people actually would use, because our success depends on that. So our first scaling strategy would be working very closely with 1, 2, 3, probably one, and then first 2 partners by end of year, and helping their platforms get off the ground. And the consequence has been present there. And yeah, what you were describing before for this, I think, hardest challenge for real world assets, especially consumer ones, the physical assets, like a life asset like cows, is this whole logistics of what if you don't repay your loan? Like what happens then? what if somebody retrieves the association to this NFT or token? What I mean by that is, let's say you have a watch, right? And it attached to this NFT and represents like your Rolex or whatever. Then whoever is buying this NFT or lender that lends to that NFT, how do they know you haven't sold this watch? Like you haven't just like walked to a shop, sold this watch, and you're just like, cool, that NFT is just there. Let it pretend that it has my watch or that I don't have it anymore. Even if you ship it somewhere, and there's a third party that takes custody of the watch and says like, we will do that for you. We will guarantee that this watch represents this NFT. The whole challenge for the space is like, now you have one third party that you need to trust, which is this whole trust system breaks down to trust to this one party, right? Like if they get attacked by people who wants to steal those watches, they're like, or they get on fire, like everybody loses their like assets. So we don't have good physical infrastructure for those things. And I said this in other space, like, world of AI and robotics should probably improve this when we can have truly decentralized physical infrastructure, but we are many years away from that. And Amazon probably will drive this forward with their fulfillment and shipping things that are already fully robotically automated. We just need that to be more decentralized.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting to sort of think on like, okay, how do you actually decentralize things that are held in a centralized place, physically speaking? Like, oh, does my smart contract unlock my door? That's really interesting. Toss it to Slorg so that I don't keep talking about cows.
Yeah, so I guess that was kind of the long-term vision in terms of the, I guess, moderate-term vision. Can you speak on potential expansion onto other chains potentially?
Yeah, and I want to prefix it that we are Solana native. We're not leaving the chain. We're not forgetting Solana. It was and will continue being our top priority. In fact, all the expansion strategies are supposed to bring more people in liquidity to Solana. Like whether it's real world assets, ordinals, or whatever we do, we will try our best to bring people here. And our next major iteration, so we've succeeded in Solana. We built a model that works for loans. We want to just bring it to ordinals. It's an exciting new protocol. Like there's lots of liquidity for NFTs on ordinals. It reminds kind of like of both NFTs on Solana. And it feels like a really good fit. Plus, Bitcoin plus DeFi is a narrative of this cycle. So there's a lot of experimentation there. It's kind of like difficult because for reasons, Bitcoin is not the chain that has built-in smart contracts. So all of the DeFi with Bitcoin is kind of like do it yourself in some sense. It's a new technology that is built on top. Think about it as some sort of like layer twos, makes sense. For example, Zeus, like previous LFG launch, that's essentially what they build in. They build in this, they're trying to use Solana as layer 2 for Bitcoin. So you can build, fun on top of it. Yeah, so we are expanding there and trying to replicate success of Sharky in that area. That brings, again, more revenue, more liquidity. And our current system, like we have this like a reward system where we share, for people who use protocol, we share it with our users. So now imagine if we're making more revenue from ordinals. Everybody who uses it on Solana will benefit from it and vice versa. And if ordinals is like 10 times bigger market than Solana, then great, you will proportionally benefit from that.
Yeah, just to touch on that point really quick, Solana native platforms are absolutely fantastic at bringing people in. If you look at examples like Phantom or Magic Eden, they've created great platforms with fantastic UXs. They expanded to other chains ultimately, but they've been bringing a lot of people into the ecosystem as well. So that is really important. Speaking of ordinals, are there currently any lending protocols on ordinals?
Are they currently what, sorry?
Yeah, are there currently any lending protocols on ordinals?
Yes, I'm aware of one competitor. They actually were inspired by Sharky, and it would be good to kind of like come there and make market more efficient. So it's not just, one protocol. It's just too early. I already heard several others trying to do it and like come in. Usually NFT loans is highly competitive space, as we've seen on Solana and Ethereum. So I would expect in the next 6 months, like several coming, not just us. But yeah.
I'm curious, like, how do you, as Bitcoin is not a chain, how do you do loans on Bitcoin? Maybe how have other people done it, and then how do you guys plan to do it on a technical-ish level?
Yeah, so the way I wouldn't be able to speak on like deeply technical level because I don't know that part yet. But the way it works for the competitors, they need a handshake. So they need lenders basically like when borrowers come. So principle of Sharky is loans need to be instant. That is something that they haven't achieved, and I think they just choose different trade-offs that we might choose. So for them, it's like it's not very similar. So there's a order book model, lenders deposit liquidity, then borrower comes in and they're trying to say like, hey, I want this like 1 Bitcoin to borrow it from this order book. Unfortunately, they need to wait for lender to say like, okay, cool, yes, I'm okay with this. It's like double confirmation process. We're trying to architect it right now to avoid that, even if we have to take pretty harsh trade-offs like move more things off chain. Majority of it's like security compromises, basically like how much we can compromise, and we don't want to compromise on security. So what is the right set of compromises? But it's you can think of it as like, as I mentioned, like layer 2 is kind of like off-chain process helping facilitate Bitcoin transfer transactions and taking things in escrow. So there won't be any like escrowless loans, so to speak. At least I haven't thought about. I haven't heard anybody thinking of, or myself haven't thought like how exactly to do it on Bitcoin. So it will be fully escrowed loans. So it's a system that just allows you somewhat safely to facilitate these transfer transactions that are safe-ish. And effectively that's on ground level 0, that's how technology works. There's nothing that like changes how Bitcoin transfers things. It's just like it's something that manages transfers on top and makes it transactional, or transactional may not be in blockchain sense, but
like the only way you can really do anything, we have something on top of it that says like, okay, you send this here and you send this there. Have you thought about or looked into Zeus at all? I have this fan of, I don't know, maybe a couple launchpad projects collaborate.
That's what I just mentioned, that like Zeus is actually using Solana for is like layer 2 for Bitcoin. We know the team, we're talking to them pretty closely. We was like watching their launch. So it's too early to tell when it will be ready for us to use. I think they will definitely reach the state when protocols like ours can just start using this as infrastructure.
That's exciting. I love Bitcoin, and it's fun to sort of see all of this get real time. Let's see. Oh, yeah. How big do you think, maybe comparatively, you don't have to, but how big do you think the loan market on Bitcoin is in terms of like, you did 5,000 SOL and interest payments. I'm curious how big you think it is, or maybe how big it will get.
Yeah, our current estimate that just like if we take snapshot what's possible right now, like if on Solana, if we assume we reach some sort of like maybe like 70% market penetration, I think Bitcoin right now, if we reach similar percent of penetration, is like 3 to 4 times bigger already. I do believe Solana will come back. I want to caveat it that NFTs on Solana kind of like experiencing not a bull run, not a bear, like they're kind of like in this like limbo state. I think we will see more growth. We'll see more mini bull run, and I think gap will shrink. But because it's shiny new toy, the gap is widening a little bit, and I think that will continue for, I don't know, hard to predict, for a few months. And given that there's just more liquidity still on Bitcoin, and that I don't see that changing. Bitcoin is like storage of value. I think that probably will be more focused on kind of like collectible assets, cultural assets, community assets, much less so as like investment contracts and like on Solana. So there will be less of them, but more dense, higher quality projects. So higher price projects. So I do believe that market would 5-10x of NFT market Solana and kind of like stay there for a long time.
That's cool. Do you feel that like your experience with NFTs on Solana have sort of informed the way you can approach Bitcoin versus someone maybe who is building a lending protocol and has never really worked with J.U.P before or on-chain assets in that fashion? Is there like any sort of exploration that you've done in there that you're like, oh yeah, I can point back to this one moment on Solana, I know exactly what the answer is?
Just in general, like in experience of like building lending protocol?
Yeah. I think just in general, like maybe aha moments you've had in sort of like moving to, or not moving to, but expanding to another chain, right? Because like I think there's like everybody on stage is very, as far as NFTs go and as far as Solana goes, but there's a lot of new entrants into the ordinal space, I think, because it is Bitcoin itself. So I'm curious.
Yep. Yeah, I would give two responses, like one technical, one less so. So like I think building things on chain, like technical response is more, you have to plan ahead much more than building things off chain. It's just data, like, you store this data in this decentralized ledger that you don't control fully. So imagine in normal world, or world before Web3, used to be normal, I guess, this past normal world, you have a database when you store stuff and you can do whatever you want with it. You have full authority of the data you store there. Here you don't. It's immutably stored, forever immortalized. You cannot modify it. So you need to plan your data, and that's very fundamental to any company. Anything you build in is data structures and how you structure them. You need to plan it ahead. You need to plan it in such a way that plans for kind of like, can I change this without mutating the past? Can I add something on top? Like, I know you want to release new version of loans. How old loans are going to be treated? Are you going to migrate them? Are you going to like branch off and like start new version of protocol? So it all creates this kind of like new types of problems. So it's more challenging in that sense to build on chain, and I'm sure it will be even more challenging to build on Bitcoin or like Bitcoin layer 2s or any custom Bitcoin solution that built on top, because not only you don't control data on chain is like heavier, slower. There's no code that is executing on chain. So that planning ahead is even more prominent there. And on social aspect, so non-technical learning from building a marketplace. So that probably applies to Magic Eden, Tensor, anybody who built marketplace. No matter how much you're trying to position that you are just a facilitator, that you connect into sides of the market, you're just providing the service, kind of like, hey, lenders, here is borrowers for you, you're welcome. Here is, hey, borrowers, here is liquidity for you, you're welcome. Of course, we're taking fee from that service. But no matter how you provide and position this, your users will still feel like they expect customer service as if you were a Web2 company, as if you're a bank. We still have this mentality. They would come to you and say like, hey, my loan, something happened. I don't know, I fell asleep. I didn't repay my loan. Can you reimburse me? And I'm like, it's just challenging to navigate often. And there's a lot of this kind of like people in Web3 using 3 with Web2 mentality, which is fine. We're happy to support users, but building peer-to-peer marketplaces is hard. There's a lot of support pressure. There's a lot of, I talk to customers almost every day in Discord, like random support tickets, or like just hear their problems. Be ready that it's not going to be fine if you just hire one person to manage Discord and support tickets. As you scale, as you grow, it's just going to increase, and your part of your product work will be building features to decrease support pressure actually, and to, as a result, also help users to like be less confused and all that. So it was a surprising amount of that to discover. So,
how has customer
yeah,
feedback factored into the long-term development of your product? Just because I can speak on behalf of the Soul Incinerator, we had a massive revamp 1 year in that was based on about 30 to 40 different user comments that we sort of synthesized and implemented all at once into the version everyone knows today. Has a similar process happened based on user feedback for Sharky?
Yes and no. So yes, we hear feedback every day. We accumulate it, aggregate, learn from it, kind of like build intuition. But we hesitate to jump in and kind of like implement things that people suggest. And that comes from my kind of like expertise in building products and startups before in general. Like, you want to listen to your customers, but you don't want to let your customers tell you what to do. Ultimately, you have to define your boundaries and maintain your principles. You need to define them well. What's your product principle? And I like this like cheesy quote that if it were, said by Henry Ford, that if they were listening to what customers want and building that, we'll be riding faster horses. We will not be inventing cars. So that is kind of like, keep in mind, like, people often tell you not what their problem is, but what's the solution. They would come to you and say like, I think you need to add this button to add like 9 loans versus 3. And you're like, okay, cool, thank you. But what is your problem? So what we do instead, we come back to them and we ask what problem they're trying to solve. And then we try and, like, we are the experts, we're trying to come up with the best solution. That's how we approach it.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, is just also determining like what's signal and what's noise there, because you're going to have a lot of voices, just considering how large your platform is and how many users use it every day and every week. So you said based on your expertise, that sort of informed your worldview and how to determine between what's signal and noise. Can you sort of elaborate on that a bit, right? Because I assume you get a lot of different responses, and you can't go with them all, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of it is product intuition. So what gives me confidence? Sorry, let me step back. I never want to be in a position, or anybody on my team to be in a position when they're like, I think I'm right all the time, or even most of the times, and nothing else matters. At the same time, I don't want them to be in a position, I'm not sure. I'm in this continuous skeptical regress, like this works, but this has these trade-offs. I want them to feel confident if they feel strongly and trust their intuition, and ultimately trust them and trust myself if I have that. So if my intuition goes against some feedback, or somebody on the team intuition goes against some customer feedback, we would favor the team. So we would always be slightly more biased to like, well, we built this original thing, we achieved some track record success, we deserve to favor that. Otherwise we'll be too influenced. Otherwise we have chances to build horses, like not cars. And what gives me confidence from the past, I think when I just started building products, like I didn't build a lot of companies or products initially, like 10 years ago, that like got insane traction. But I was looking at products and I was like thinking, okay, I think this will be a massive product. Like I'm usually like early adopter, I try lots of shit every day and kind of like build my own intuition, like, oh, will this work? Will this work? And the favorite example was like when nobody was using Slack, for example. I was like, there's some weird messenger. Let me just install and try it. And I used it and loved it. It was like an open beta. No company, I think, like that I know of, like was using it. And I just had such a strong conviction. To me, it was like obvious it's gonna grow. Then I don't know, 10 years later or 7 years later, multi-billion-dollar company sold to Salesforce, used by virtually any meaningful workspace I know. So things like that. I have several stories on that built confidence in me over years that I think I have decent product intuition. I think I understand what makes people want to use product, what is a simple usable product, what makes people detract from products, what is a good user experience. By no means I know everything, I'm perfect, or anybody on our team, but this is kind of like the guideline we use. Is there a conflict, basically? If we're getting strong feedback, is it going against our intuition as a team? If yes, then we kind of like try to parse out this feedback and steer favor the team. If not, then we just try our best to implement it.
And on top of that, inherently as a decentralized protocol, we want to cater to, various levels of knowledge of finance, as well as various, Solana, like amounts of Solana people have and XYZ. So in that regard, we also want to cater the product to be intuitive, right? I've self-indulged many times and been like, oh, Restuta, let's take the order book and put all kinds of bells and whistles on it, and this button and this button, and that would probably detract from what makes our product so good, which is the ease of use and that ease of getting liquidity against your NFT. So in that regard, even I have to stop myself as a lender, right? Because maybe we want to do something that's better for borrowers, right? So there's a lot that goes into that even I myself, a power user of the product, I sometimes will run an idea behind Restuta and he's like, well, this, and this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. That would kind of affect a whole majority of users. So kind of catering to various levels of knowledge, as well as various use cases and users is kind of the difficulty and the beauty of a protocol like that.
Yeah, and I can give tangible example to make it more understandable, because it sounds very abstract for the audience probably. So one of the recent examples of like product decision. So first of all, like philosophy, right? It's very hard. It's easy to add complexity. It's hard to remove it, almost always, because when you add complexity, then people depend on it, your system depends on it. Removing things from the system is harder than to add them. That's just true. So we hesitate to add things. So example of recent features, Solana is slow. So we were adding priority fees. I think we succeeded pretty well on that. So like right now, when people use Sharky, a lot of people ask like, how comes I cannot transfer things in Phantom? So chain feels unusable, but Sharky is mostly works. We still don't get 100% success rate, but transactions are going through, and that's confusing thing for some people. And if you notice, on Sharky, there's no priority fees configuration. So like the pushback that we got, like some engineer came to me and said, like, give me design, like, hey, we're gonna copy, this some popular protocol, screenshot of like priority fees. We're gonna keep it simple. We're giving people like 3 options, blah, blah, blah. And our philosophy is like, be the expert, take complexity from the user. That's the reason, for example, lenders cannot control 3 risk parameters on Sharky. They can only control 1 principle. So they don't control 3 or 2 dimensions, just 1. So our principle is like, if we can be the expert, shouldn't we take off the hands of the user? Shouldn't we decide on their behalf what's best for them and remove this cognitive load? So my pushback was like, no, we're not going to do priority fees configuration. Like, how would the user know which fees to say? Can we do this programmatically? And apparently, like Helios has API that programmatically suggests to do it, and some other ways to like identify like what is the best priority fee right now on chain. It has to be calculated real time, which is what makes it complicated. But like, can we do it on user behalf? Can we basically like do our best to set the fee that will more likely make transactions succeed? And the answer was like, potentially. But the counterpoint that the person told me, like, what if humans know better? What if we will try, but you know, in this 10% scenario when we failed, what if humans know better? Why don't we give them this configuration anyway? And my pushback on pushback was like, sure, I acknowledge that humans can know better, especially in some complicated things like, you know, Solana conjunction setting fees, but we should still not give them configuration. What we should do in that case is, if your transaction fails for a specific reason, we should tell you like, a retry with a higher fee, 1 button. And that is an example of kind of like, if you have this principle and you hold it very strongly, you can come up with, I think, much simpler, better product experiences.
I'd like to pivot a little bit and go into a different category of questions for now. I'd like to ask you, in what ways did your project benefit from the LFG process? And what was the most significant piece of feedback you received, if any?
So we benefit because we bring DeFi community to NFTs. I think that's very exciting in general. We don't want to be just, hey, we NFT lending protocol. If we go in, for example, and we expand it to real world assets, we will do lending for like fungible tokens. We don't really care. We started with NFTs and all that. So while you're doing token launch, you want DeFi community to be looking at you. And like, if you have narrative, if you actually expand to other areas where you will be dealing with those assets, that's what you want. You kind of like want to bring other side of the universe, not just NFT community. And Jupiter is largest by far. So we benefited by inviting this community to be part of Sharky, learning about Sharky. And in return, we're doing public sale for that community, so everybody can participate and get our token and like, you know, further participate in Sharky down the line. For, I think, second part of your question was, what was the second part of your question?
Yeah, I can repeat it. No worries. I asked, what was the most significant piece of feedback you received, if any?
Most significant piece of feedback, I think it's mostly about presentation of our tokenomics. I think we didn't think about like how things might be perceived. So like, and some people, like, we got feedback like, oh, like, we're not happy about this distribution and that. And we just realized that our tokenomics is good, but we are not communicating it well. Like, we make it seem like there's not a lot of like community allocation and the launch is skewed towards, you know, insiders. It's not. I truly believe we have very, very balanced launch that benefits community and insiders, and we tried our best to maintain this balance to as much as we could. We consulted like, I know, probably 10 different advisors on tokenomics, slicing and dicing, criticizing it from different angles, like tweaking parameters. But the major feedback was like, well, when we dig deeper with even critics and they looked at our tokenomics, they were like, oh, I see what you guys mean here. Like, you should communicate it like differently. That now makes a lot of sense. And they're like, yeah. So I think major takeaway, if you're launching a token, make sure you communicate information in a very snappy way. Like, if you're posting like pie charts, you know, distribution token charts, I understand who you're talking to. So like, if we were talking to Jupiter community, which is a lot of retail users, community users, and the information was presented in a balanced way, I think it would be better to present it for a retail and say like, hey, this is what is going to work. This is why we believe it's a balanced launch. And this is how, you know, evidence from our tokenomics. So that was the biggest feedback on that.
Your project is one of the few that has both an NFT and is soon to have a token. How do you balance those two things? What are the considerations involved? And what benefits do you feel tokens have over NFTs and vice versa?
I will try to be concise because it's an expensive topic. We now have an entire ecosystem of that. So we not only have NFT, we have existing utility token called Fish, we launched in Shark. So we have this dual token system. Holding NFT, we will always funnel benefits to NFT holders. That's our OG holders. It's kind of like bread and butter for a community. If you're using our platform and it's NFT lending protocol, holding our NFTs is a no-brainer in that sense because everything is entangled there. So the more you use the platform, the longer you hold NFTs, and the higher levels those NFTs are, the more you benefit from platform revenue. It's kind of like gamified rewards, rewarding only active participants. And like the more active you are, basically, the better you get disproportional rewards compared to everybody else. So that's existing system. Now, new token is focused on the future, but also bringing some things to the existing ecosystem. So now when we're building new products, new incentives on those products will be tied to this token. Our upcoming platform features, like we have ideas of some features that we want to get accessible progressively. So like it's, in a sense, is like, if you think about token gating, it's a binary thing, right? Like if you hold the token, you get this feature. If you don't, you don't. We don't want to do it. We rather want to do incremental progressive kind of like, oh, if you want to use more of that feature, then you need to lock up your token. So we have features on the roadmap like that. Then to answer the second part of that question, like what else is in stock for Shark? Like how is it different from existing utility? We actually organizing, like we started a new initiative. We're organizing a DAO that is not meant to rule our Sharky's development. It's a DAO that we believe will change how people learn about making money in this space. So we realize that majority of people use Sharky pretty much just make money. Like, and they have very different strategies. Like lenders, more risk averse, they take controlled risk. Borrowers typically are more risk. Sorry, vice versa. Like borrowers willing to take more risk. Lenders are willing to take less risk. But they're all doing it to make profit. They're doing it to trade, to flip tokens, to flip NFTs, or use some other strategies. But they don't talk to each other, kind of like they talk in smaller groups, some smaller cabals, and like kind of like that information is very scattered. So what we want to do, we want to organize a DAO that helps educate people how to make money, how to be a lender, how to be a borrower, and go way beyond that. Like how to trade, what can you do on other chains? And will be focused on like high quality content and information coming from, if you imagine like alpha group that's closed out. So it's not an alpha group. It's a DAO that's run by professionals, by people who do it at scale. And we're still structuring how we're going to present content. It's not going to be like a boring course or anything. But if you support the North Star, if you join in this DAO, you're starting to learn, like no matter where you are in your journey of like making money, you will start to learn how can you do this better than you've done it yesterday. And our token will govern that. So it's not only to serve as access to this, it will also serve as a governing and voting power, whether to direct liquidity from this DAO, if we haven't managed liquidity, how to structure education. And I think it helps that I came from educational startup before Sharky. So I'm kind of like combining DeFi and education in that front. So one of the exciting utilities for our token is that governance and participation in that DAO. And that's aside from like platform utility. Then obviously token Shark participates in our economy. Like I mentioned benefits before. Like if you're using our platform and you're holding NFTs, you will get some benefits from platform fees and stuff like that. We plan to make token be able to amplify that. We're still not ready to disclose the exact like formula and how it's going to work. But we believe it makes sense if you're participant of the ecosystem to kind of like make it even better if you hold more of our assets. I said I tried to be short, but it's my best attempt.
No, it's all good. Just to orient everyone really quickly, we're about 55 minutes in. I have about 3 or 4 more questions left. Then we'll proceed to the second and third parts of the AMA where we'll open it up to the audience to ask some questions. So, yep, just hang tight. My next question is in regards to marketing. So could you describe a bit how marketing played a role in this experience for you? Because I noticed that you guys really made the most of the experience and over the last couple months really came to the forefront of Solana to become one of the most well-known protocols in the space. So could you talk about your marketing strategy a bit?
Yeah, like I like to call it growth strategy rather than marketing. Marketing, usually people associate like putting ads somewhere, like doing paid promotions. Grew up to maybe like 2 months ago. We did some paid promotions and marketing for TG because that's a different like beast kind of like you need like other side of retail to come in big publications to post about you and stuff like that. But if you're just trying to grow in the space, we actually spent $0 on paid promotions up until, I don't know, February. It's all about growth strategy. It's all about like, what is the good incentive for anybody to promote your project? And I think you should start that question in reverse, kind of like walk backwards. What can you offer them so they can offer something in return? So it's a win-win situation for you. So the flywheel effect for us that contributed to majority of our growth is partnering with upcoming mints. When you upcoming mint, you don't really know the market unless it's a second mint from existing project. You don't really have traction. So you're kind of like trying to partner up with everybody and get like benefits of exposure to communities. So our strategy was like, well, if we get in between of all communities, we land in NFTs and we all platform, all collections are listed on Sharky, then eventually we will get traction when we're in position when we kind of like know everybody. So every upcoming project would really benefit from partnering up with us, just doing cross promotions, like helping them with like whitelist allocations or whatever they need. And in return, we would like them post launch and maybe sometimes pre-launch to promote Sharky and say like, hey, we got listed on Sharky, feel free to like lend and borrow. Now market is open. So yeah, so that became kind of like flywheel effect when new mints, new launches like come to us and ask like, hey, can we cross promote with you? And we're like, sure, this is what we need in return, and that's how it's going to be structured. And obviously, if you mention new project, then you attract a new user base, potentially somebody who haven't yet is not holding other NFTs. Like maybe it's somebody new just bought in a new project, and then they come to Sharky as a new user. So that's all obviously beneficial for us. That's how we build audience and capture like wide audience of NFT holders. There are lots of other strategies, but just that's an example when you think of like, what can I offer them so they offer it back to me? And I think in a nutshell, all growth strategies work kind of like that. You're doing a trade and paid promotions are just very boring trade. You're just trading money for a promotion, but we like trading effort, product, social capital. I think that's what scales better.
What do you think that most tokens get wrong after launching? Because I assume that the pre-launch stage is a significantly different process than the post-launch stage. So what do you think most token projects get wrong after they launch?
I wouldn't say with confidence, wouldn't speak with confidence that I know what most projects do. I don't know about most projects. I think what I observed so far, what we're trying to avoid is this kind of like mentality that like TG or NFT sale this is your payday. And you kind of like, you go to, I don't know, take vacation after, because it's very intense process. All of this is very taxing on the team and everybody involved. But it's not like that. The real work starts after. Like, yes, now you did token launch and like you have your token liquid and everybody is hyped and all of that. What determines success for you as a company is like what you do next, not what you have done before. You can attract lots of capital through this launch. I don't know, you can like build millions in treasury. And then what? Like, how do you turn this treasury into a meaningful product if you haven't yet? Or how do you scale your product? And how do you tie this to token? Like, is it governance? Is it utility? Like, what makes your token valuable long term? I think I've seen again and again kind of like teams launching, maybe doing some like hyped activities first to 1 or 2 months, and then things kind of like die out, which probably is a reflective of motivation. Like maybe they did it for own reasons. Like, I just don't believe somebody who has strong conviction and passion can like in 2 months, like, lose it and be like, yeah, we tried shit, shit didn't work. And now we're not trying new shit. So I think people who are passionate will be continuously trying, communicate and building stuff that will be visible. So I'm not even sure it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake to launch token for own reasons. And if you launch a token for good reasons, it's a mistake to not communicate what you're doing, like not communicate your roadmap, your progress, and continue building hype and continue building in general. Another thing that I've seen, so like I just highlight 2 things. So second thing is basically assuming that if your price action is okay, sorry, let me rephrase, like being too attached to your price. It's true for NFTs and it's true for token. I think a lot of teams focus on driving price up, including NFT teams, including token teams. The question that I would hear when I advise projects, like, how do we move price up? How do we like make asset more valuable? I think it's a wrong question. If you focus too much on price, you will only come up with short-term Ponzi-like strategies that will move this price short-term. To move price up long-term, you need to create long-term value. So the right question to ask is like, how do we ignore current price action and focus on long-term value creation? Like what that roadmap looks like, what our vision looks like, how do we make it live? And then quote unquote success will come. So I think that's another common mistake is like focusing on price versus focusing on outcomes and your dreams coming true. Unless your dreams is money, and then I don't know. You shouldn't. I don't want to speak on that behalf.
Yeah, I just have two more questions, and then we can go to the second and third parts of the AMA. So the first of which is, on your tokenomics breakdown, you have a section for airdrops. Can you elaborate on that and any other potential rewards which might be associated with your token launch?
Yes, so that section, so rewards come from 4 different sources. Don't attack me in harassment Twitter if it's 5. But I'll name major ones. I may be forgetting something. So OG platform users will get rewarded. Our recent farming season that we started, I believe, 6 or 7 weeks ago, will get separately rewarded. So those are 2 separate allocations and kind of like incentives and rewards. Then we just announced Mad Lads community that you can go to. You can read our recent tweet. If you're holding any Mad Lads, you can go and reserve your allocation. You have to do it. So it's not like you can just get it on day lunch. We're doing this attention economy. So if you're paying attention, you need to perform certain steps and you get your allocation. And people who didn't pay attention, you actually get their token. So you get more at the end. So we're rewarding attentive diamond hands and not rewarding non-attentive paper hands. And we're about to announce one more community that will also benefit similarly to Mad Lads. Then also Zilli campaign. Like Zilli is more social campaign, kind of like hype Twitter up, perform quests. I think all of this composes to this number and rewards to community. Mechanics of this rewards and distribution is still to be announced, but it will be claimable on Jupiter. So that's what's important to know. But pre-launch, like right now, I guess I can say like as usual, because Jupiter now launched several projects, you will be able to just see and claim your allocation.
Gotcha. And my final question is, are there any lingering misconceptions about your project that you'd like to clarify?
Yes, that it's a degen project. Even though we're in degen space, I don't think our project is degen. Loan in markets are existing since money exists. Like, it doesn't take too much to invent concept of like borrowing and lending somebody money who needs more of something. So I think we're just operating and building something that current market demands, which is much more volatile, much more fast moving. So when people look and say like, oh my God, 7-day loans, what kind of degen stuff is this? I'm like, it's a kind of degen stuff that this market demands. Market would demand it like 700-day loans, we'll be building that. So I think that's common misconception that we kind of like we're not building casinos or lotteries. We're building financial products. They're just a reflection of the market. But it doesn't make it less serious or less successful. Like, in fact, I think it's quite the opposite, given of how successful we were in that area. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and that formally concludes the first part of the AMA. So we will go to the second part now and kick it over to you guys one last time in case there were any topics you felt weren't adequately covered or anything you wanted to address with the audience. And in the meantime, I will ask the audience, guys, if you have any questions and you're a cat of culture or a cat debt roll, so the orange or red rolls, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, post your question in the chat and I will ask it on your behalf. So raise your hand or ask your question in the chat. Sharky, take it away for now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just wanted to iterate. Maybe some people joined later or some people like haven't heard that much. Just like high level overview. We're launching with Jupiter. It's our main token launch. The reason for token launch, we expand into new verticals that bring us back or bring us closer to our vision, which is helping underrepresented, maybe underserved parts of world population get access to capital through loans or through mortgages or through buying things now, paying later. Most of the world don't have this. Like as sad as it sounds right now, most of the world, like 92% doesn't have it. So that's our goal and vision. And we're still very small. We're very far away, but we dream big. And our immediate step is to straighten our position in the NFT market. So we expand into ordinals, which is so far seems to be bigger liquidity market. And we're tying it back to Solana. So we kind of like want to unite this and bring, intertwine liquidities. I think Major Kiden is pretty successful in that, for example. Then slightly longer term vision, we tap into consumer real world assets, facilitating loans there, becoming liquidity layer. And with that scale, I think we can start attacking consumer loans in those parts of the world that I described, which is much, much harder problem. It requires a lot of liquidity, it requires a lot of connections, it's lots of logistics. It's just not feasible to just like go and do that as for a small company like us. But we're not that small, so we're strong and mighty, and now we're becoming much larger. And that ambition is why we're launching the token to power the future.
Gotcha. Nepa or Poised, would you guys like to say anything to the audience before I start asking the audience questions?
No, not much other than we may be hosting a voice chat in our own Discord tomorrow as well if people want to continue asking us questions and getting to know a little bit about Sharky. But I think we can continue other than that, Slorg. Thank you.
Go right ahead with part 3.
All right, sounds good. I will ask one last time. If anyone has any questions, feel free to hop on the mic if you are a cat det or a cat of culture, the red or orange roles. Otherwise, post your questions in the chat and I will ask on your behalf. This is the last time I'm going to ask for questions and I will start reading them now. So the first question is from Polly369, who asks, will Sharky use BTC runes?
We're exploring right now. Yeah, we would like to explore runes for sure, but I want to see them kind of like a little bit battle tested before we actually double down and check.
Gotcha. The next question is from Swabblue, who asks, in the announcement, it says that borrowers should repay all loans to ensure you get your points. What does that mean? If you have outstanding loans after farming season is over, you might not get your points?
Yeah, I think I can answer it. Basically, the question was about not paying your loans back after farming season. I think this was in particular to our announcement. So yeah, we wanted to make sure people were aware, like as a borrower, you need to pay your loans back to get those points. If you have outstanding loans still, you can still pay your loans back if you wish. Those points just may not be the points. Those points just may not be a part of farming season. We just announced our farming season has ended about an hour and 40 minutes ago, I believe. So any outstanding loans after that will not account for the farming season. I believe that was what the question was, and that's
Yeah. Yeah, we clarified before that like repayment for borrowers is what counts. That is point generating events, but you still get fishy. So like you still get points, normal points that convert to fishy, and you don't get points for farming season 1, but it's season 1 for a reason. I'll leave it at that. I'm implying there that after 1 comes 2, just to be clear.
Gotcha. I think you touched on this before, and I think your answer was it was TBD, but I'll ask it anyway. bgrime800 asks, what percentage of Zealy participants, also will it be linear airdrop for qualified Zealy folks based on XPs they have accumulated?
Yeah, for Zealy, cannot speak to it. Biba, our CMO, is still finalizing numbers, deciding. We'll announce as soon as we have all of that. I think they're massaging this like right now. I have to delegate some parts of this and just not super informed like what decisions they're making there. But we will announce that relatively soon, I would say.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, the next question is from a cat of culture. Yand0 asks, we know many projects who launch airdrops, and after the airdrop, the NFT tends to suffer a bit from that. The question is, what precautions do you have in mind to prevent this from happening?
Yeah, our FT for our community airdrop is actually not that large proportionally speaking. Like, and our holders are extremely resilient in that sense. Like they hold. Like definitely there's a lot of people who bought NFTs to like boost points in the airdrop. I do believe we'll still see some social price impact, kind of like people like selling because they either misunderstood why they bought or believe it's not valuable to hold anymore. which is not true. But interaction is just with everybody, with everything else, like explaining the benefits. Holding our NFT has been very beneficial for a lot of people. It continuously, it's a gift that continues giving. If people here, for people who here for short-term flips, we just can't avoid this. Yes, they will flip and like they will like sell. But yeah, so we might see some temporary price impact on NFTs. Like it inevitably comes with some sort of like, oh, we took the snapshot. So specific measures, like we don't have a date of snapshot. Like we are not going to disclose when we take a snapshot for our NFT holders. We will just do it whenever we feel like in assigned points. And we continue giving people rewards for holding NFTs. So that's, I think, is also important. Like for farming season, it was multipliers and like boosting campaigns. There will be more rewards coming up, and we always reward, like, the longer you hold, the more rewards you get. So yeah, I would say those are like pretty standard measures of interaction.
Next question is from Weird City, who asks, what does the token do?
Yeah, I will probably repeat myself, but the utility of Shark token is threefold. The reason there is threefold utility and we're not just like razor focused on one, because we believe it covers three different audiences and gives people three different reasons to buy. One utility I mentioned before, I'm not going to go in a lot of detail, but just we're building this how to make money DAO, like the name to be announced. When you're able to govern and participate, and it's heavily focused on education community of how do you make more money in this space, not necessarily by using Sharky, but also by using Sharky. So that's one thing, one utility probably covering people who like, I don't do NFT lending, I don't hold NFTs. Then another, we have upcoming platform features that will have progressive exposure depending on how much token you hold. So you, for example, will be able to try this feature for free, but if you want to use more of it, you would need to have a certain amount of token proportionally. So like, it will lead to certain financial benefits for you. So obviously that is kind of like correlates with like, okay, look up more token, get more access to this. That's at least the current plan. And additionally, so that covers platform users. And additionally, our token participates in existing utility of our NFTs. If you use our platform, if you hold NFTs and upgrade them, you get 25% of platform revenue and 50% of our NFT royalties as a revenue rewards distributed to holders. So our token will actively participate in that mechanics as well. So that covers existing kind of like OGs holders and new users. And that is three category of utilities covered in broad range and like even three different reasons to hold the token.
Great. Tim, I'm going to let you up, but there's a question ahead of you, so I'm letting you up now. The question is from Weeda Alpha, who asks, what is the date for the official allocation for Season 1 farming?
What is the date for the official allocation? What do they mean by that?
Weeda Alpha, would you mind clarifying your question? In the meantime, Tim, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Big fan of Sharky. Seems really cool. So there's been a lot of regulation happening recently in the US. Uniswap just got served with the Wells notice. Does Sharky have any plans for if the regulation impact it?
I mean, I don't know, lawyer up, like what plan can we have? I think we have pretty good coverage and structure. We have formal legal opinion on our token that it's not a security. We have legal opinions on our operations. We have good legal structure and structure within the team of like trying to protect us from kind of like things like that. We did our best already. We have two different lawyers consulting us, kind of like double checking opinions from like one side to another. So everybody in the space is kind of like prepare us as much as we can, but regulations can change tomorrow. Then nobody is protected from that. So the response is usually like lawyer up and do your best.
Yeah, I guess that's all you can do. Okay, thank you.
This is the last call for questions. So if you'd like to ask a question, please post it in the Gen chat. Or if you're a cat of culture or cat debt roll, feel free to request to speak. Weeda Alpha clarified his question and he asks, when will the token allocation for each wallet farming Season 1 be announced?
Oh, I see. Pretty soon. Don't want to commit to the date because it usually has backlash. Like, like right now it's high stress for everybody on the team. We feel like, say, tomorrow, and then things slip through the cracks and we'll not do tomorrow, we'll get fat, but like very soon in the coming days.
I think I'm gonna cap it at 2 or 3 more questions. So I'm just gonna run down the gauntlet. Next one is from Glitch11222, who asks, if in the near future we are using a coin or NFT to verify ownership of physical items such as real estate, do you see Sharky being a useful platform to borrow against the ownership of such NFTs? How can we guarantee financial success within the whole life cycle of the Sharky project?
Yeah, 100%. I've worked on real estate in the United States as part of like high-tech startup. I know real estate market pretty well. I've heard Poised knows real estate market decently well as well. So we have a pretty good understanding of that within the team of like what can we do, and even in some other real estate markets that are not part of United States, it's the dream. Like, you know, if people can have mortgages on chain, if they can borrow against like, you know, their house is collateral instantly, liquidity, amazing. I really want people to have access to this when there's no like weird middleman in between and slow and annoying process. Sharky would fit in very well, and we can build like the best consumer product when you can probably open your mobile app, you know, click 2 buttons and get amazing loan. Question is like who can bring those assets on chain and figure out all the regulation frameworks and enforcement and everything. So like, you know, when we all Sharky needs is to somebody say like, hey, this is the house, this is how it's priced. When you borrow against this house, we will enforce if loan is not repaid, what happens next. And we know the strategy. So cool. And we can plug in, build product, bring lenders.
I'm going to ask 2 more questions and then I think we'll cap it there. So the first one of the 2 is from Bahamas Gov Soul, who asks, what will you guys do with UGS and Honey?
Burn or like convert their assets at some predetermined formula and get allocation. But that allocation it's not an airdrop, so it's on terms similar to our investors. So basically they are converting kind of like they are talking about vested, unlocked, and those similar terms. And yeah, they will have a window, probably a bit longer window than farmers and airdroppers to kind of like convert the assets. I've heard internally that this platform for like converting these assets is also launching very soon in coming days. And yeah, so if you're one of those holders, UGS or Honey, be on lookout as usual. Like turn on Discord notifications, turn on Twitter. It will be a pretty straightforward process for you.
Okay, does anyone have one more question? I see someone asked about the Zealy again, but we've answered that several times now. And any other questions? I'll take one more if anyone has one. If not, I think we will cap it there. Let's see, I see a couple people typing. I'll give them a minute to type.
Asking favorite Solana wallet. That's a good one. I use Terminal, hardcore control scripts, because Solana is not working now.
Okay, I think I'll ask this one from StarX EDP. His question is around, how do you plan to maintain good community support?
By retaining people who currently work for us, because I do believe they do excellent community support already.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's a huge compliment. And I think a huge part of it as head of and this is just my little kind of vertical in view, but I think the partnerships that we create and establishing ourselves with some of these amazing communities such as, you know, Jupiter, such as Portals and Soul Casino, Mad Lads, MDAO. I think that's a huge part of it, as well as just continuing to back our token and our NFT with our amazing platform, you know, and focusing on what we're good at. And then on top of that, just we love the Twitter Spaces, and we're very available in the Discord. If you ever have any questions about lending and borrowing or anything in general, we're here. So that's also a big part of it. We love you guys and we love our Sharky holders. So
yeah, our team almost literally has 24-hour coverage, which is like different time zones for support and like Discord communication.
I think we will cap it there then. Yeah, Sharky, thanks for coming on once again. Thanks for getting the community caught up with everything that's happened in the last 2 months since we last spoke to you. And yeah, really bullish for your future, and I hope the launch goes well for you guys.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. Pleasure to be here. Lots of love to you and the community.
Thank you guys.
I'm going to stop the recording here, and I think that will officially conclude the AMA.